Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for watching our pre-recorded talk today. My name is Dr. Matthew Vetter, and I'm an associate professor at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And I'm here with my co-author, Jialei Jiang.
So I just completed my PhD at Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
And the title of our talk today is Writing Against the Epistemology of Deceit on Wikipedia, which will also be a chapter that's included in this collection. I'm going to have Jialei start us off with like the first half of this presentation, and then I'll continue at the results mark with my offering.
So in our chapter, we turn towards Carolyn Jack's understanding of misinformation and contextualize such notion within the epistemology of deceit in Wikipedia. More specifically, we understand misinformation as connected with the broader forms of social marginalizations on the encyclopedia. So the purpose of our study is to examine the ways that college writing students compose and expand Wikipedia articles to address the encyclopedia's misinformation. And we see great opportunities of Wikipedia-based writing pedagogies in allowing students to practice critical media literacy. And we also seek to extend the current literature to highlight the complex processes through which subjectivity, ideology, and agency cut across both human and non-human relations. So in our chapter, we engage feminist new materialism as a research method that guide our study. More specifically, we utilize the feminist new materialist notions of interaction and lively assemblages throughout our data collection and analysis. We understand interaction as the entangled nature of the material and the discursive. So in the context of Wikipedia editing, it is the production of knowledge that can also be seen as distributed and enacted practice. In terms of lively assemblage, we approach such notion as dispersed forms of textualities and agents that work together to co-produce reliability within the encyclopedia. So such assemblages also enable students to take collective actions against the production of misinformation. Moving on to the assignment descriptions. So for our study, we have recruited participants from 2 different English writing classes, including a graduate level writing class called Digital Rhetoric and a lower level undergraduate class. So for both classes, students engage in critical Wikipedia-based writing, and they expand in marginalized topics on the encyclopedia. To summarize, for the graduate level class, 12 student editors made a total of 170 edits to articles such as #activism, internet memes, digital identities, and digital literacy. For the undergraduate level class, a total of 46 student editors made a total of 363 edits to articles such as violence against LGBT people, educational inequality, and gender equality. So our data sets include both student edits that they made directly on Wikipedia, as well as the reflection essays that they collaboratively wrote following their editing experience.
Excellent. Thank you, Jialei. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the results, again, contextualizing those results within the particular frameworks for new materialist feminism that we are working with, which are, again, interaction as this kind of entangled nature of the material and the discursive, and lively assemblages, which we're looking at specifically in terms of how Wikipedia co-constructs reliability through a process of dispersed textualities and agents. And both of these, in our interpretation of these frames, together combined work towards sponsoring critical media literacy for students working on these types of assignments. So in terms of interaction, we have some data from those reflections that students wrote to show how students are starting to really see that agency and action in Wikipedia is a result of an entanglement of multiple agents that are both material and discursive. So we can see in this particular example in the reflection how the student is working with those multiple agents and kind of understanding and starting to understand that interaction. Another compelling piece of evidence from our study was the actual editing that students did from the English 101 course on the article Gender Equality. We were especially interested in how students viewed and employed wiki links, which are links to other Wikipedia articles, in terms of making connections between material and discursive agents and agencies in Wikipedia. In terms of lively assemblage, again, we're thinking about the dispersed textualities and agents that work to co-construct reliability. And what was fascinating here was students would be working on a particular article, say on the article #activism in Wikipedia, and would be adding to a particular section. And they came to the awareness that to build a reliable section in this particular article, they would need to bring in a lot of different kind of components. So we have Greta Thunberg here, Greenpeace, Jane Fonda, particular material and real life agents that contribute to the reliability, as well as more traditional references to particular events that are happening. And all of these create a kind of a lively assemblage for the co-construction of reliability in the encyclopedia. Another key recognition that students were making was that they were able to see how Wikipedia, as a kind of an archive and a collection of various references and sources, was able to assemble those particular sources in the working towards reliability. And those were very much human material assemblages. So here we have a student reflecting on how a Wikipedia article is going to make connections between different communities, digital tools, and other resources such as Google Scholar. So both the lively assemblage and the interaction in terms of how we're interpreting our results through these frameworks can enable a teaching towards new understandings of agency and activism, because students begin to see how these particular actions in the world are distributed, multiple, and entangled assemblages and actions, and that they produce new literacies, meanings, and knowledge. And we really see that as part of a critical media literacy that Wikipedia-based assignments afford. We also, in doing this work, we also really saw the opportunities for teaching towards a distributed notion of reliability. And by employing the concept of lively assemblage in particular, we were able to reframe the notion of reliability in Wikipedia as something that is dynamic. It's a social and material process, and it involves multiple social actors, policies, and algorithmic processes in Wikipedia. So that particular notion of reliability is going to be very important going forward in terms of how students especially see misinformation and disinformation in online digital spaces. Finally, we do see a lot of opportunities for pedagogies of intersectional feminism because of the work that students did on particular articles that were, by their very nature, intersectional. We were able to see how students can start to attend to systemic biases and recognize the intersectionality of some of these systems of oppression. In terms of the challenges and conclusions of the work that we're doing, pedagogically especially, we did notice how students had some challenges kind of locating and citing sources effectively. The catch-22 of Wikipedia is that if something is marginalized on the actual encyclopedia, it might also, there's a good chance that it is also marginalized in other more public discourse, and that represents a particular problem for students looking for sources. At the undergraduate level especially, we found it difficult to teach students, teach students the rules or the game of Wikipedia, while also kind of critiquing some of Wikipedia's more constraining practices and policies, such as the principle of neutrality, and trying to balance both of those things was also challenging. Despite both of these challenges, however, we do see the Wikipedia-based assignment as a form of feminist new materialist praxis that opens up more opportunities for not only for practicing critical media literacy, but also actively writing against the epistemology of deceit in the encyclopedia as well as in online spaces. Thank you so much, everyone. That's our presentation today. Again, we are Jialei Jiang and Matthew Vetter, and we have our contact info below. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions, comments, or concerns. Thank you.